Welcome to the Tearing It Up podcast. I'm your host, Taryn. We'll be tearing it up, tearing it down, and tearing it apart, dissecting all things related to those who deviate from the standard. From leaders of their industry to leaders of mediocrity, and maybe a gear review or two thrown in. We shoot the shit and let the conversations flow, so if that's not your style, this may not be for you. Otherwise, listen in. Hope to light a fire in you somehow. Hello, everybody. We're back. And again, more bike content because it's bike month still, and it will be also when you hear this. I'm like, always have to remember, when is this coming out? Is it actually going to make it in time? But it will still be May when you all are hearing this. And I'm really excited to talk to our guest today because I actually got to meet her in real life first. And a lot of times it is more so that we have a guest on and then down the road at some event or for whatever reason, somehow we get to meet them in real life. But it's always exciting to me when we get to meet in real life first and then have the person on the podcast, because just that real human interaction connection is just so awesome and important. And I think that it can bring a little more to the table when you get to meet in person beforehand. So we have Casey with us today, who is a live cycling mechanic, and she also does some freelance mechanic work, but we'll dive into all that and what she does, how it all started. And I met her at Sea Otter, so some of you may recognize her if you've seen the videos I put up on Instagram and YouTube. She did some how-to videos with us, and it was just so great, and I can't wait to learn more about her journey and how I can also start learning more bike mechanic fun stuff. So we always like to start out, Casey, with you as the guest telling us where you are physically in the world as we are recording right now.
Awesome. So I am currently in Bentonville, Arkansas, sitting at a hotel room. Just getting ready to set up for Bentonville Bike Fest, which is a huge bike festival that is happening this coming weekend.
Amazing. I've heard about that bike festival, and Arkansas was never on my radar until I started getting more into mountain biking and I started to learn about how much mountain biking there is. But I wouldn't say it wasn't on my radar. It wasn't on my radar for mountain biking, just being from the West and having this idea in my head about, like, you know, what stereotypical things come to mind when mountain biking. So when I heard how big biking is in Arkansas, I was like, wait, what? And so it's definitely on my list to go check out Bentonville. I know a lot of cool stuff is going on there. So will you tell us a little bit about the event that is happening this week or weekend?
Yeah, so basically it's just a huge bike festival where they bring in bike brands and bike adjacent brands, outdoor industry brands into the festival, and then people can come and they can demo bikes. There's all kinds of like little race events and really cool like different bike events. Like I'm trying to think of what they're even called, but like not just mountain biking, it's all kinds of different bike things to watch. It's pretty exciting. And there's group rides, there's clinics, there's just constant events for the whole week. A ton of fun. I'll be mostly just working demo, so I'll be doing a lot of the event setup. So we put these huge tents up that are, you would think that you would have like professional event people putting them up, but the demo crew is going to be putting those up. And then I will just be helping get women set up on our live bikes to make sure that the fit is right and that they have the best ride.
I love it. It is so awesome. And I saw your posts like after Sea Otter, like taking down, and I was very impressed that all you were the ones taking those down, because it is not just your like 10 by 10 canopy tent that you're throwing up there. It is like the poles, like heavy duty poles, and they're huge. How big are those tents? Like 20,
Those
30
tents are
feet?
20 by 20, but they're like 40 feet in the air. They're so big. It's insane.
I can't believe
It's
that you
really
guys have to
insane
do
how
all
big they
that
are.
too. Gosh, that's so
Yeah,
much
we
work.
were talking about it last time, and we were like, we should probably have hard hats for this because we're lifting these big heavy metal poles into the air, with winches, and it's pretty intense.
Oh,
On
jeez.
though.
Yeah.
Gotta get
Jane
it
of
done,
all trades. Yeah.
Yes.
Gotta get it done.
Yeah.
Well, and that kind of segues into the conversation. So, as you listeners out there know, every time we have a guest on for the first time, we like to dive a bit into their background, kind of where it all started, without trying not to get too sucked in on one way or the other. But it can be hard to do a big overall kind of life story type thing, and you don't have to go that deep, but we do want to know like where it all did start for you with biking. Like, where are you from originally? Were the outdoors always a part of you? We want to, yeah, kind of follow the zigzaggy path that you've taken.
Okay, so it started back when I was 10 years old. I saw a commercial with a realtor, and the realtor was like giving hugs to the family, and the family was so happy they had just found their house. And I was like, that is what I want to do. I want to be a realtor. I want to help families find the homes of their dreams. And that was my passion. Like from 10 years old until out of school, I was going to be a realtor. And I did get my real estate license. I got my broker's license, and I was a real estate broker for several years. And then moved into being an appraiser at the county, so a real estate appraiser at the county. And while I was doing that, is my son at the time we read books together all the time, and we were reading a book called Chasing Alley Cat, I think it was called. And it was about a local mountain bike woman who had this adventure on a mountain bike, and it really stuck with him, and he decided he wanted to join the high school mountain bike team. So that kind of is one part of my path. So I'm a real estate appraiser, and my son is interested in getting started with the mountain bike team. At the same time, I was dating someone who was the executive director of a nonprofit bike space called Key City Bike, and I was hanging out a lot there. And it was the coolest place I'd ever seen in my life. This was like so underground. It was this building, a building that was didn't have windows. It had one window that it wasn't really a window. It was like a cage basically that we put a piece of cardboard or a piece of plywood in to close, and we would open that. And then it was like this old cinder block building, so there's always water coming in, and it was all these old bikes, and just it was just fascinating. There was bins and bins of old parts. It was tiny, but it was 2 stories. And so I started volunteering there, and basically what we did is we taken bikes that were donated from the people in the community that were just going to be thrown away. So we would take those bikes and we would scrap them. We would take parts off of them and recycle those parts, or save the parts that we could reuse, and then we would rebuild bikes and then donate those to people that needed them, or sell them at a very affordable price for people that needed them for transportation. So I was uh, getting into mountain biking with my son, and then I was also getting into bike repairs with my partner at the time. Um, and then I one day was walking down the street, and um, my friend had a flat tire, and she called me and she's like, "Hey, can you help me with this flat tire?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can definitely come." So I go to the Key City Bike Shop. I grab a pump, I grab some tire levers, I grab a tube, and then I'm walking to her, and this guy was sitting on a bench, and he said, "Hey, do you need help with your tire?" And seeing that I was carrying all this stuff, and I was like, "No, no, 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 I've got it." And that, when I said that, that was like, it hit me so deep down inside. I can't even explain it. I know it sounds kind of silly, but like, I was like, holy crap, I can do it. And like, it was empowering. I was like, I'm the help. I'm the one that can fix this. I'm going to help. And that feeling I correlate with like wanting to help people find the house of their dreams. Like, so
Hmm.
that's kind of how it comes full circle. Like, I found what my passion really is helping people. And it wasn't necessarily in real estate. I found out real quickly that that passion was helping people through cycling. And so um, I immediately then kind of fell into the bike world. I started volunteering. I took on a coaching position with my son's team. I took on the executive director at that nonprofit bike space. I joined the Mankato Area Mountain Bike Board. I joined the Greater Mankato Bike and Walk Advocates. I was seriously dedicating every single moment of my free time to cycling and getting more people into cycling and learning how I can help get more people into cycling. So just really dedicating my time to that. And then uh, it was a few years after I was still working full time as an appraiser at the county. And then also doing all this volunteer work in addition to that. And I saw an advertisement on Facebook for Live Cycling, and they just said, "Hey, do you like wrenching on bikes? Do you like teaching women how to mountain bike?" And they're basically listing off every single thing I was doing in my community on a volunteer basis. And I had no idea that that job existed. I had never heard of a demo tech. I had never heard of even like bike brands going out to communities. I had no idea that was even a thing. Um, and so I was very curious and reached out to them and was like, "Hey, I think you guys just posted like my dream job. What do I need to do here to apply?" And it was a 2-month long process. It was not fast. When I got flown out to California for the in-person interview, I had a bike mechanic test where they leave you with a bike and they say, diagnose what's wrong with this bike and make the adjustments. And it was
Wow.
it was a 4-hour interview. So it was like really intense, but like every minute of it I was just hoping and hoping that this would be my job someday. And a week later, they called and offered me the position, and it was a dream job. It was an absolute dream job. I got to go out to California, pick up the Live van that was filled with 20 mountain bikes, and that fleet of bikes was my bikes that I maintained and would go around all over the western coast. And do bike demos for women, and we would do mountain bike clinics, like how to like intro to mountain biking, and then we'd also do like basic bike maintenance clinics. Um, and yeah, that's how I got into it. But then the pandemic,
Oh,
and we were grounded. All the demo vans were grounded, and so I was laid off, and I went home, and
where
it was
is
crazy.
home,
That
by
was
the way?
devastating. So, yeah, home is Mankato, Minnesota is kind of my hometown. Um, yeah, so I went back to Mankato and was beyond devastated, just like anyone losing their job, but then it was my dream job, and just knowing that that was over and what was I going to do moving forward, but I trusted that it would work out. I took advantage of the time off and I finished my GIS certificate so I could do mapping. Um, and then UBI reached out to me, United Bicycle Institute, and was like, "Hey, with the pandemic, a couple of our instructors can't be here. They've got to be at home with their kids who can't go to school because of the pandemic. Would you be a guest instructor for us?" So I did move out to Oregon and to Ashland, Oregon, and I was a guest instructor at United Bicycle Institute. And I love teaching, so I thought that would be like my dream job. But it turned out it was actually pretty rough teaching mostly men. Um,
Oh.
and I thought I could do it. I was like, yeah, I'm not worried about it. I'll prove myself. But having to prove yourself day after day after day after day really does wear on you mentally. And at the same time, a horrible fire broke out and burned the entire town next to us down. And it was extremely traumatizing to live through. And so then I was like, oh, no, I can't be here. Um, and got hired with Hammerhead. So Hammerhead is a bicycle cycling computer. They make the Karoo computer, and it was an incredible company. It is an incredible company. They had advertised, or actually, sorry, I was following Aisha McGowan on Strava because she was a live athlete prior to that. And I saw that she was recording with a Hammerhead crew, which I had never heard of. But when I saw Hammerhead was hiring, I wrote to them and I was like, hey, if you guys are supporting Aisha McGowan, I think that we've got some similar integrity and like values. And I think that we'd work great together. And I was right. They're an incredible company that support women. And yeah, I got hired by Hammerhead, and then Hammerhead was swooped up by SRAM. And so that is
Oh.
how I ended up at SRAM. Now I'm full time with SRAM as a senior technical support rep for Hammerhead through SRAM. And then on the side, I pick up gigs with Live Cycling still as a demo tech, and then also with BMC as a mechanic for races and events for them as well. So
Wow.
that's kind of my life into the bike world.
I love it. I absolutely love it, because, I mean, obviously, we all know that 5 years ago, a lot of people got kinda swept off their feet, and I can't imagine, though, like, having found this dream job, like, that didn't even know existed, and now you're like, "Oh, wow, love this," and it being, like, over, and then, like, where do you go from there? Um, and eventually finding your way back to Live and being a part of the Live community still is amazing, and on just, like, looser terms, it seems where you have more flexibility and options to do other things, but you still get to kinda do the best fun parts of it, I'm assuming,
Yes.
but I'm su
Yes.
obviously it's work and these
Yeah.
events, like, you get stuck in the tent all day long, like, you're not
Yeah.
really getting the chance to get out and talk to people or probably do much yourself at some of the events, but it sounds like, you're still getting to do what you love, which is getting women on bikes at these events to demo them. Or when I was at Sea Otter, at one point when I was in the live tent, you were setting up a bike for a gal who was going to be racing. And I was like, I did not think that anyone would be demoing a bike to, like, race. I just thought they'd be, like, riding around testing it, so I thought that was really cool that she was actually gonna, like, race it. Like, dang, that's some serious stuff.
Yeah, that is crazy when people choose to race with a brand new bike just because they don't know the bike. But the
Yeah,
one thing that I've learned with live bikes is that they fit women really well. And most of the time, when I let someone demo for a race, they end up buying that bike because they bond during that race. So
that
I think if we have the fleet and we're able to let someone use it for a race, yeah, I think it's a great option.
that's amazing, and that's a huge statement that people who race it often end up buying the bike. That, I mean, says speaks volumes for what Live is as a bike.
Yeah.
Like, it is not just a smaller version of a men's bike, right? These women who are serious about biking are buying these bikes after riding it, one time and in a professional setting. That's amazing. I love Liv so much. So I was
Yeah,
really
me
stoked to be
too.
able to meet you. And I also wanted to get back to, well, the very beginning when you said that at 10 years old, you're watching this commercial and there's a real estate agent. I thought for sure you were gonna say something like, "They were riding a bike," and I was
No.
like, I don't know, and so I was like, "Holy crap, that is, like, so like, you don't hear that often of children of that age wanting to be a real estate agent, especially for the reasons that you said, that like, that was so, I feel like, just what a powerful thing to come to at that age, like a real estate agent, because you want to have help people find their dream home. You hear of kids, wanting to be a doctor, lawyer, or something, because those are just the big things in society, the things to aim for, what a lot of people think is the biggest fish in the pond or something, and super aspirational, blah blah blah. But the way that you put that of being a real estate agent so you could help people find their dream home, I'm like, you from in the core are like just a caring, empathetic person if that's what you thought of at 10 years old about being a real estate agent. I'm like, that's amazing.
Had the same thought. And also, when you find a bike, it's kind of like finding a home for your body. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like a lot of
totally.
your bikes are an extension of your body, especially when you've had it for so long, you get super used to it. I just think that that's totally full circle and so cute.
I know.
Nice.
Yeah. I know,
So
absolutely. I love that you brought it back to that full circle. I didn't really expect that either, and it just has given me some other ways to think about stuff too. I feel like I've just been in a phase where I am trying to maybe see more connections and things instead of being so dead set on like one thing and it's this or like the all or nothing kind of mentality and I want this and nothing else. I've always kind of been that way and stubborn, but yeah, trying to open up the mind and be like, there these things do connect through this and this, so I don't have to feel like. And for me, these feelings come from things, I guess, with Amber and I had a conversation kind of like this yesterday, but like reaching a hard spot in your path and getting to the point where maybe you need to pivot or change direction and you just are so dead set you don't want to do it at all. You're like, no, that's not what I wanted. I'm giving up. But another similar to a conversation we had with Sensi Gray is like reframing the like the quitting mindset. You're changing because whatever is happening isn't serving you, but then being open to see these other connections, I think can really help with like changing those paths. And I mean, the way you fell into all this was just happenstance. It sounds like these things were happening. You're starting to see these realizations rather than like being at a point where you felt you had to make a pivot, but seeing that you could and how it all connected. And I think it's just really great. And also that space that you were talking about, what was it?
Key City
Uh,
Bike.
Key
Yeah.
City, but yeah, wow. So I just have visions of it in my head. Does it still exist?
Yeah, so actually, while I was the executive director there, I helped negotiate a new space with the city. So we ended up moving to a space that had bathrooms and running water, and it's a really great shop to this day. That is more like a bike shop instead of like this dilapidated cinder block side building. Yeah.
Well,
So yeah,
part of
they're
the
doing great.
charm. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
no, it was. It was so cool. It was so cool.
and I feel like a community, like a lot of those communities start in spaces like that because of
Yeah.
funding and just it's just the gritty of what cycling is. You start where you start and you go from there.
Absolutely, and that statement reminds me, like, one thing I think that some big brands don't recognize is that a lot of cyclists start on that bike from that nonprofit, and that old 80s mountain bike that they're riding, they start riding that, and then they really start liking cycling, and they're like, "Oh, I now need some front suspension." And so then they get a used bike with front suspension, and then they're riding that, and then they're like, "Oh, full suspension might be kind of cool." So then they get another used bike, but now they're ready after that third used bike. Now they're ready to invest. Like, okay, I love cycling. I love this. I know I can even do more if I have this really cool bike. And so I think that, yeah, we do start, with just used bikes, but that will grow that passion, and then that is how you find more riders in that group that is just starting off. And that statement, ride what you got, I'm 100% behind that. If you're starting off in bike packing, you don't need to have a bike packing specific bike. You can figure it out on any bike. I've bike packed on road bikes, on mountain bikes, on gravel bikes. So like, I'm 100% behind ride what you got. Like, just start riding, and then you'll figure out ways to get into other bikes the more you ride.
And it also helps dial in what you want in a bicycle. Like my first bicycle that got me into biking was a 1970s vintage Sears Cruiser. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And like I remember Taryn's first mountain bike was this hunk of junk, but she rode it and beat it up, and it just also gives you perspective and appreciation for what's out there nowadays. Because if you start on something that is like super nice, super new, you don't get that progression or understanding. And maybe you do in other ways, but it's just you start where you start, man. And it's a beautiful thing when you have a shitty old bike that you start out on and then you upgrade to these nicer, newer bikes and you're like, I finally made it.
Yeah.
Finally made it.
That's absolutely how I felt when I got my first full suspension. Just so Amber was with me when I got my first mountain bike. Got it off Craigslist up in I think Seattle or close to or something like that. I think
Yep.
I was home from Tahoe visiting, and it was 150 bucks, an old Raleigh, like hardtail, like not disc brakes. Just I was like 25. I think it was my first summer. I think in Tahoe. Yeah, because we were riding
10
out
years
from
ago.
yeah, 10 years ago. Hard to believe. So I'm so stoked. I bring it back to Tahoe. I'm like, I'm gonna start mountain biking. Like me and my good friend Hillary, who was living in Tahoe at the time too, were like getting into it, but with knowing nothing at all about the sport or bikes or anything. Because yeah, before I had a old like vintage road bike that I from Amber's inspiration that I got also in Tacoma when we'd bike around when we lived together there. But yeah, road biking, it was just such a different feeling. And I hadn't biked for really much a few years. And then I was like, yeah, mountain biking sounds way funner to be out and get dirty and all this. And yeah, I rode that thing for years, years. I don't even remember what year it was when I got my first live. Maybe 2000. I worked at North
Oh, you're
Star,
fine.
a bike park here in Truckee, and so that summer, I got to ride full suspension bikes because I was working there as a like very 101 bike instructor. But I'd go home from work and ride my shitty ass hardtail down this trail that's still like my favorite trail to hit in Truckee. And then yeah, I was like, God, I really need one of these nicer bikes. I think it was like 2019 that I ended up getting my live in Bolden, base like model. It was the most inexpensive full
Yep.
suspension bike. And finances for people. I never try to tell people what to do, but the only way I could get this bike was financing. So that's how I kind
Yeah.
of fell into it and finding Live, and they offered that payment plan. And for me, that was still the only reason I have the current bike I have, which is like also like middle class, not like super super high end, but um it was game changing. I just remember going on my favorite trail finally with a full suspension bike, and I was like, "Wow, life is so different." Because it was one thing riding the bike park on a full suspension, like, yeah, I get it, but it was so different to finally be able to take this full suspension out on the trails that I loved. And a dropper post is probably what changed my life the most because on my
Yeah.
bike, my seat post had like it got to the point where it
You were
wasn't
kicking.
staying
You
in
were.
place, so I'd be biking up the like, and with my seat just eventually going all the way down, like, killing my quads, trying to, like and then I'm, like, at the top, I'm like, "Well, at least it's all the way down to bike now," but it was just, absolutely amazing to do that and get in that space. And I think this is also something we talked about recently with Natasha Woodworth of Curious Creatures, how she came from a big ski background, and biking just feels so much more accessible to the majority of the population because of reasons like this. You can start with that cheap $100, $150 bike and just get out and ride it and see if you even like it and take like little incremental steps to get something better that's more fitting. You can just be wearing your regular clothes and shoes, and
Yeah.
you never have to get to this like certain standard. Obviously there's certain places and things where people have the like elitist attitude of like, oh, you don't look like a biker, you don't have this bike or this gear or whatever. But I think it's far more forgiving than like skiing and whatnot. And it's just, yeah, the biking community is so big because all of the different kinds of cycling. So you can just get real weird. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly. That's why I love it for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it's so cool getting a little more immersed into it. I've been a part of biking groups, here in Tahoe, just going on like group rides and whatnot, but not really much on the industry side. As I worked in gear shops in Tahoe, they were more backcountry ski related, not bike shops. Um, but I'd see a little bit at trade shows just from different brands who covered like bike apparel and stuff, but it was never really like the gear. So Sea Otter really was the first like big bike specific industry event that I went to, and I was just like, I
Wow.
love it here. I love it here. Like, I love
Yeah.
the outdoor industry. I had a lot of great times at trade shows and things, and like a lot of great reps and stuff, but I was on it from like a different side than I am now. And like I said, it was the bike industry feels like just a little cut off of that outdoor industry, that more niche, but like so much more. I don't know. Just everyone is obviously not everyone, but so nice and cool and great. And I was like I said, I fucking love it here. This is where I live now.
Yes.
So I'm curious how you got back into being a mechanic for Live. What was that like when they were coming out of the pandemic? Because a lot of things did a change, and I feel like some things are still not really back to where they were, and I don't know if they will happen, and that could be just from the pure growth of like biking specifically too. There's still a lot of events and things that go on, but did Live move away from what they were doing with that demo and doing all these events? And that's why it's kind of structured as it is with what you're doing now, or what did it look like when it came back?
Yeah, so I think a lot of brands, not just Live, after the pandemic, had to cut back a lot in finances because just in budgets in general. So what happened was the pandemic hit and people could still ride bikes. So we sold bikes like crazy, and then we replenished that bike stock, but then everyone had bought bikes, so then we had just way too many bikes that we couldn't be sold. So a lot of bike brands in general just had to cut budgets and really tighten up. So I think Live and Giant were just like, we can't be sending doing individual demos. We can't just be sending a dedicated demo driver out to events. I think what they wanted to do is just focus on the major events that were going on. So like Sea Otter, like Bentonville Bike Fest, like Sedona Mountain Bike Festival, like the big mountain bike festivals, and still offer demos, but mostly use their internal staff. So instead of using a contractor, just because that's going to cost again. So luckily, I was able to negotiate a contract with them so that when there's a need for a woman mechanic specifically, or for Live support specifically, that they would call me in for that. So I still have to take time off my full-time job to be able to attend these jobs. But my employer, SRAM and Hammerhead, have been extremely supportive of that. So luckily, yeah, I'm only contracted with Live for 3 events this year, and that's Sea Otter, Bentonville Bike Fest, and then Rome Fest. So it's not a ton of events. Yeah. But I am so grateful because like I've said, it's my passion. So like I'm so grateful to have those events with them.
Have you
I'm
done Rome Fest before?
I've done Rome Fest every single year for like
amazing.
forever. Yeah,
Good.
it's my all-time favorite event ever. Yeah, have you guys are going this year, but have you been before?
First year,
Okay,
baby.
Yep,
first year. Oh
have
my god.
been. Yeah, we're
Okay, it's
so
epic. Yeah,
excited, and it's been so amazing to talk to so many of the amazing women who are going and representing either Rome Fest or their companies, like yourself, Sam Ryan, obviously, who works with Rome Fest, and
yeah, that's awesome.
Natasha Woodworth Curious Creatures is going to be there.
Yep.
We've talked with Wild Rye, so I feel like it's just going to be. I'm so excited. And we were talking about it yesterday and kind of our planning. It's September, so it's still months away, but that obviously can sneak up on you very quickly too. So especially Amber and I can really be both a little bit of out of sight, out of mind. I'm like, all right, we got to check in like really often with each other about our plan. Because it's a 12-hour drive for me. So we'd
Wow.
love to be able to get Amber to like fly here from Washington and then drive with me so we can stop along the way, maybe hit like Moab or something and make a real trip out of it, because so
Yeah.
often, like I'm sure I've shared this on the podcast, I've done a lot of things with the jobs I've had. I've been able to travel, but I am just there for work. I do not ever have the time on either end to like go enjoy really anything, because I just can't like ever really afford to take the extra time off and do the fun stuff. I'm like, shoot, I only have enough time that I can go do the thing, and can't spend any extra money doing this or that. But I'm like, no, this is such an opportunity, and it's her and I'm like, I think both at a place where we need to have some more fucking fun, and a Rome Fest obviously will be fun, but like
So fun.
we gotta plan, like take the opportunity to have the other days to just make the most of it. What's the point in a straight shot 12-hour drive going through these amazing places that we could be biking into with bikes in the freaking back of the truck and not stopping? Like I've done a couple events in Utah, in Moab, and I was doing some bike coaching. So I went straight there, did the couple like clinics that I was working on, but didn't really ride on my own. And I'm like, what am
Yeah.
I doing? Like, how am I not taking advantage of this? So, yeah, if you have any suggestions on other places to stop or visit around Fruta for us to bike, let us know for sure.
Okay.
And also anyone out there for sure, like give us some top spots
Yeah.
to stay or whatever. I don't think there's much through Nevada, but
So,
uh,
what does it look like for people to dial in a demo for Rumfest or any of these festivals?
So for demo at Rome Fest, I think you have a separate pass. You get they sell the passes separately at Rome Fest so that they can make sure that there's enough bikes there for people that want a demo, and then also make sure that there are the right sizes there for people that want a demo. Um, and when someone demos, what happens is they come up to the tent, they give us a credit card and ID. We typically hold on to just one of those as collateral while they have the bike. They fill out a waiver that basically says that the brand is not responsible for any bodily injury while they're out on the bike. Um, our demo program, we we'll then bring the rider into the booth and introduce the bike to them. So we just talk about like what the bike features are. And then I make sure that the seat height is set proper. So I have them get on the bike and pedal to make sure that they're getting full extension of their leg. So they have full power while they're riding. And then I check the brake reach, make sure the fingers can reach the brakes properly and make adjustments there. I go through how the shifting works just because every bike is different. If you've got electronic shifting or cable shifting, just a reminder of how the shifting works. And then I also do a short tutorial on using the dropper because a lot of people demoing the higher end bikes sometimes haven't used a dropper before, so they don't even know how to use it or why they would use it. So we go through a real quick, like, here's how to use it, here's why we use it, let's practice using it. And then we set sag for the suspension. So super important that the suspension is set up right because that can make or break your ride. And then we send them off on the bike. So check tire pressure too. So it can be kind of a timely thing. I try to time my demos to 10 minutes or less when I'm setting somebody up. But I do really feel like that time with them is important. And I know a lot of demo is like just getting people out on bikes. So they like just, how's this feel? Good, sends them out. That is not my approach at all. I spend time with them. I make sure they're comfortable. I make sure they know how to use the features on the bike and then get them out.
well, that time spent too, it's like when you're just putting someone on a bike, quickly sizing things up and they're out. I mean, obviously you also demo to people who maybe are more familiar with bikes. So when you're demoing people who aren't, and this bike is like maybe very different to them or their first time on a bike or on whatever that kind of bike they're demoing is, the way you do it is making that connection that just make them feel comfortable. And I think as like working for a company that they probably value that very much in you, that you are taking care of these people and thus these people are making a true connection with the brand, with the bikes, and like, wow, these people really care about me. Oh, I didn't notice the time Amber had to go. I was
Okay.
like, where'd she go? I thought she disappeared. But I just love everything about how, like, watching you do the demos, because like I said, you can just really tell that you care about the person, not just like getting them out there, out the door and on the bike. And mentioning how you kind of fit people and whatnot, I was wondering, did you do or I don't know if you had to for like any kind of certifications that go through a bike fitting certification, or is that just something you learned like getting into bikes?
So I have done training for bike fits, but I'm not a certified bike fitter. And I've basically we Liv has gone through training on how to fit people properly on their bikes, and it's basic
Mhm.
fitting. So just making sure you're getting almost a full extension, a slight bend in the knee. When you're pedaling, there's a couple different like fit checks I can do. Like I can have the rider put their heel on the pedal and pedal backwards, and if their heel just slightly raises off the pedal, I know that seat is too high. So like just little tests like that, just to make sure. I also like to go over, like how to adjust the seat. So if it is set that it's wrong, I can show them how to adjust the seat. If they're out on the ride and need to make the adjustment themselves. But yeah, it's basic training, but I'm not a certified fitter.
Well, I love that. I mean, you also mentioned in the beginning how the interview process for Liv was like 4 hours. So it's like they
Yeah.
don't take the job lightly, and you were out there also working with race teams. So I mean, it's incredible to me that this all started from like your son kind of getting into mountain biking, and then your partner and tearing bikes apart and putting them back together to be
Yep.
working for pro cyclists is amazing. And now you also like teach mechanics classes and courses, right? Can you tell us a little about um, what it is that you teach? Is like just little community kind of intro things, or are you certifying others to be mechanics? What's the range there?
Yeah, so United Bicycle Institute does have a certification program, but I do not certify mechanics. I take a lot of the information we used at UBI and use that information in my teachings. But so the clinics that I do a lot of community clinics. I'll do like trailside bike repairs. So we'll just talk about how to fix a chain or how to fix a flat. I do going tubeless. So we just learn about why you would want to convert to tubeless, how to convert to tubeless, and then how to maintain tubeless tire systems. And then I teach demystifying your derailleur, just because that is probably one of the most mind blowing things that I've experienced with learning bike maintenance is just how the derailleur works, how the shifting works, and how to make adjustments. And I feel like it took me a long time to really wrap my head around that. And now I have a really good way of helping others understand that. And so I really love teaching that class. Um, but then I also partnered with Girls Gone Gravel, and we created a bike mechanic camp. So what that is, it's a gravel camp slash bike mechanic camp, and it's a really cool 4-day session out in Patagonia, Arizona, where we do bike maintenance in the morning and then do rides in the afternoon. So like for example, the first day we do a complete tubeless tire maintenance. So if you're coming with tires that are not tubeless, we go ahead and convert them to tubeless. And if you're coming to the camp with tubeless, we take off the tires, we take off the rim tape, we put brand new rim tape on, and we put new sealant in and seal the tire and practice plugging. We do basically everything you could possibly need to know with tubeless tires in the morning. And then you get to go test your work in the afternoon and ride on those tubeless tires. So that's just an example of one of the days, but we really get down and dirty with the bikes. The women that leave that camp know their bike inside and out and are confident in working on that bike. And so we had our first year of camps last year. We had 2 separate camps, but the same itinerary. And they sold out right away. And we did 2. We have 2 coming up this year in November, and they're currently sold out as well. But we are taking people on the wait list, but they're camps of 12 people each. So we can still have that one-on-one with everybody. We don't want to make them bigger than that. But yeah, so that's a really cool thing that we've got going on that is, yeah, I'm excited about.
That sounds absolutely incredible. I wanna get on the wait list, and that's how I learn best, and I think a lot of us do, especially when it comes to
Yeah.
something like your bike or, like, I, put together a sled mechanics for snowmobiles. Like, I wasn't doing the teaching or anything, but I posted that and put it together
Right.
because that's the way I learn is by doing. And I have to get there because I've done a couple little clinics with bikes where they show you how to do stuff. We got like in this last one I did, it was still a couple years ago. Like I was going over a few specifics on the derailleur and I tried to take notes in my phone, but then I'm like, wait, what? Like, what does this mean? And
Yeah.
obviously, every bike's different too. Um, so the idea of being out there for 4 days, doing it all, then riding it, and then also just knowing that you're around people who like if something goes wrong, something's incorrect there, then like you can fix it on the spot. You've got eyes on you that I just feel like adds so much more confidence to it all. And I just love that shit so much. And I'm so terrified to ever actually like watch a YouTube and try and do things because I'm so worried that I'm gonna do it wrong and then break something. And it's not inexpensive to fix some of these things. So I get afraid to tinker like on my own, but I really, really want to know more because yeah, one of my goals is to go on bigger or first off on any kind of bike packing trip, but also big bike packing trips. And I just feel like for myself, I want to know all of this, especially, I'm not in my head at the moment, these trips are solo, not with someone else. And even if they were with someone else, I'm not the type of person who would want to put all that ownness on them of like, well, I'm going with someone who knows what to do. So like that's good. Like,
Right.
no, I wanna be able to do it, especially on like my bike when you're creating such that like intimate relationship with your bike when you're on trips like this. Or like Amber said, you really do get a connection with your bike. So I think it's important to like be able to work on it yourself and treat it as like an extension of you because I think for a lot of us it is.
Yeah, and I can relate to you with the whole being like insecure about tinkering, especially it took me forever to actually like start to really learn about my bike without having someone there overseeing me. Like I was so nervous that one wrong thing and I wouldn't be able to fix it. So I always had to be like under the guidance of another mechanic to do anything. And I asked so many questions. And that's
Mhm.
good. You should ask questions, but there's a lot of people that won't ask the questions. But I was so nervous about messing up that I asked hundreds of questions to these mechanics when I was learning. And so, yeah, I just want to say that that's totally normal to feel like, oh, I do not want to touch this bike unless I have that guidance. And that's really what I want to offer at these camps is like getting people to touch their bikes and feel confident in it and knowing if we mess it up, we can fix it, you know?
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Do you have any I'm sorry if I missed this. How many years or how many camps have you done the gravel camps?
So last year was our first year. This will be
Okay,
our
okay.
second year. Yeah.
Awesome. And so being that it's still fairly new, this is the second year, but so maybe you don't have any plans yet, but maybe you do. Like, do you have plans of more locations in expanding or kind of just holding where you're at right now in Arizona?
So that's kind of up to the Girls Gone Gravel crew. I'm absolutely for offering it in other locations. We've had people ask for us to do it in Spain and in Australia and in Oregon. So like, people are like, "Oh, I wish we had this here." So
Mhm.
there's definitely like an ask for different locations. At Sea Otter, I talked to UBI crew, and Ron was like, we would love to offer the UBI school space for you guys to use if you want to do like a mountain bike camp
Wow.
at our shop. So we definitely are talking about offering more camps like that. I would love to do a mountain bike one, a mountain bike specific one. Um, but Girls Gone Gravel is like, I don't know if we have an audience for the mountain bike crew. So
Right.
who knows? It would be cool though, I think, to do like a mountain bike focused one where we're going over mountain bike maintenance.
Yeah.
But the gravel camps are we cover, the things that we learn about tubeless tire systems are the same on the mountain bike as the gravel bike. So it's very much a crossover.
Right, transferable to, especially with technology, it seems these days. And I did, when you brought up the tubeless thing, I was like, okay, so wait, can you make any bike
No,
essentially
no,
tubeless?
nope.
Okay, okay,
You can't. No,
okay,
it does have to be a tubeless specific rim and a tubeless ready tire.
okay,
So yeah, most tires on the market and rims on the market today are tubeless
okay.
compatible. But you just the other day, I grabbed a couple of used tires from Key City Bike because I wanted to make I wanted to throw them on a rim so people could practice plugging.
Mhm.
And I got home and I installed it, and I hadn't even like checked if it was a tubeless tire. I just assumed it was, and it was not. So it would not seal at all. It
Oh,
won't seal. And so yeah, even like yeah, you do have to make sure that it is a tubeless ready system in
okay.
order for it to work. Yes.
Got it, got it. Yeah, I was just like, "Wait a second, is my mind about to be blown here?" Not that I'm doing much of it, but I was just like, "Wow, I really like, I know very basic things about bike maintenance and mechanics." And yeah, it's been on the list since I got my mountain bike of like, I wanna learn more. That's why things like this gravel camp sound so amazing. And, you know, a lot of folks who mountain bike these days, it seems like, are gravel biking also.
Yep.
It just seems like the
Yes.
crossover between the 2 is it like, again, I'm not deep in it all, but to me and the people I know feels like pretty balanced. So it's like, you know, do one, and like I said, there's a lot of transfer to the other. And I'm getting more into gravel biking with where I live, and I'm like, yeah, do one in Tahoe. Like we've got a lot of roads around here
Oh,
that it
I
would be
like
great
it.
for,
Yeah.
and some camp spots like these reservoirs that my biking route is, like a bunch of camping in them, and you just like can take 30 miles of gravel roads through all three, well, more for sure, but yeah, it just let me know if y'all start thinking about Tahoe
Nice.
for sure. But I 100% I'm gonna check it out and see about getting on the wait list for it because, like I said, that is
Cool.
just sounds absolutely amazing and immersive, and I need that immersive shit. But before we get out of here, because I know you're gonna have to get ready to go set up, be on tent staff
Yeah.
first and
Tent duty.
everything.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that, you know, you want the people to know listening, whether that's like any piece of advice or other events or things that you offer that we haven't talked about yet that you want anyone to know, or like ways to follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram. My real first name is Acacia, and so my Instagram is O_Acacia. And that's ACACIA. I am trying to do better at putting up like cool mechanic videos. I'm just starting to get into that, so it's a slow process, but I am working on it. Um, I just want to leave with saying I believe in you. I believe in everyone that wants to learn how to work on their bike can. And I reach out to me on Instagram. I just met with a woman via Zoom who is interested in becoming a mechanic, and she just had a bunch of questions for me, and I was happy to answer those questions. Like if I can be a mentor to anybody, I will be. So yeah, I'll leave it with that.
Ah, absolutely amazing. And said you the way it all started with your story from being young, like you can just tell at your core, you just care about people and getting them out and sharing your passion for others. So I think absolutely anyone out there who has questions, like do not sleep on reaching out to Casey because she's a wealth of knowledge and just an amazing human being. Like, thank you so much for being here. And of course, for all of the information you shared with us at Sea Otter and letting us make those videos and share those couple like how to things. You've definitely inspired me to be working on my bike, and I 100% I'm sure will be reaching out with any bike maintenance questions. And
Good.
um, I don't know if our paths will cross before Rome Fest, but I'm really fucking excited to get to see you at Rome again and get to hang out with the Live crew and um, maybe get my bike a little love from you there.
Yeah, heck yeah. Awesome.
Awesome. All right, everybody out there, thanks so much for listening. Check the show notes on ways to find Casey, and I'll link some other fun stuff there that we talked about, the gravel camps, in case you want to get on the wait list. Live because I love them, and other fun stuff in there. So thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week. We hope you enjoyed this episode and would do us a huge favor, since we don't have any sponsors or anything like that, and would rate and review us on whatever platform it is you use, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever it is. And if you're listening and downloading just through the website, tearingituppodcast.com, leave comments. We'll definitely engage back with you. And on social media right now, we're just on Instagram. Tearing It Up Podcast is the handle. Like the post, share the post, comment on the post, whatever it is you got. Show us your love so we just stay relevant and show up in the rankings at all. So again, rate and review, please. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.